this is Jen from Windrose Fiber Studio. Today we'll be crocheting Megan's headband. For this project you will need a medium weight yarn. I'm using Heartland by Lion Brand in the color Glacier Bay. You'll need scissors, a 5mm crochet hook, a yarn needle, and a fabric covered headband. I'm using a 1-inch headband, but you can choose the width that you prefer. You will also need 19 stitch markers. If you don't have plastic stitch markers, you can use 19 short strips of yarn. The first part of this project is doing a single crochet wrap of our headband. We're going to begin with a slip knot on our crochet hook, and then you can see I have the working yarn behind the headband, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the loop on my hook. I really want to pull this stitch so that it's nice and tight and there's no chance that it will slide off the end of my headband. To make a single crochet wrap, I'm taking the hook behind the headband, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over in the front and pull through both loops on the hook. Okay, I'm going to do a second stitch in the same way. And then I'm actually going to stop now that I have 2 stitches on the headband, and I'm going to place a stitch marker in that second stitch, the one that we just completed. I'm going to pause so we can take a moment and look at the gauge for this project. No matter what kind of headband you're using or yarn you're using, you will need 19 stitch markers placed evenly around your headband. Now, if you so choose, you could just wrap your headband, and then when you're done and you're happy with the way the headband is covered, you could just evenly place your stitch markers. No math, just put them in place. Make sure the 10th stitch marker is at the center and there's an even number of stitch markers on either side, and you'll be fine. You can look at this diagram and get a sense for what we're going for. Now, if you're a little more inclined towards math, which I tend to be, then what you're going to need is a stitch count that's going to equal a multiple of 18 plus 3. Now, I've made a lot of these headbands, and working with a medium weight yarn, I have found that a multiple of 5 works really well. So that's going to be 90 stitches, plus we have to account for the last stitch marker and the fact that I put a stitch in before and after the beginning and ending stitch markers. And that's just because I don't want the stitches to start too close to the end of the headband. So it's going to be a multiple of 18 plus 3. Because I'm using a multiple of 5, I will need a total of 93 stitches working around the headband. It also doesn't really matter which way you look at this design. If you're coming at this as a left-handed person, you might invert this diagram and just think of the left side as number 1 and the right side as number 19. It really doesn't matter which side you're starting with or finishing with. The idea is to have them evenly placed. With a multiple of 5, you'll place a stitch marker, and then there'll be 4 more stitches, and then the next stitch marker. So there'll be 1 stitch marker for each set of 5 stitches, and 4 stitches in between each stitch marker. Now, if you were working with a bulkier yarn, you might have a multiple of 4, and so there would only be 3 stitches between your stitch markers. Or if you're working with a slightly finer yarn, you might work with a multiple of 6, so there'll be 5 stitches between your stitch markers. The one thing I would caution you against is working with a yarn that is too light. I would really stick to medium, because a DK or a fine yarn is going to, it's going to result in a headband that might be a little too small. Now, if you're making it for a toddler, that might be exactly what you need. But if you're making your headband for an adult, I would stick with a medium weight yarn. Okay, so I hope all of that made sense. I could have filmed this a lot of different ways, and I just decided to go ahead and go with a multiple of 5 and place the stitch markers on as I work my way around. Once again, if you just want to wrap your headband and place your stitch markers evenly around, that is perfectly okay. You will get the same result. All right, so let's get back to our project. Okay, so before we get back to work, just let me be clear that I am using a multiple of 5 for this project. That means we'll be making a total of 93 single crochet wraps around this headband. The first stitch marker went into the second wrap because there's one on each end. Also notice that I'm holding the beginning tail to the back of the headband, so it's being worked in as we go. So there's the first one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and I just did the 5th one after that. So here goes another stitch marker. You want your wraps to be nice and close together. You really don't want your headband to show through. So you may see me stop occasionally and push the strands close together. So I've just done another 5 single crochet wraps, and I'm reaching for my next stitch marker. So now that I've got a few inches of yarn on my headband, I'm going to go ahead and trim off that beginning tail. I have fast forwarded to stitch marker number 10. This stitch marker should be at the center of the headband. If you're not quite at the middle, or if you're a little bit beyond the middle, you can use your fingers to slide the strands gently and position those stitch markers where they need to be. So once I'm happy and know that my middle stitch marker is at the top center, I keep going, and you can see I've jumped ahead to the end of the headband. After placing that 19th stitch marker, I do one more single crochet wrap, and I'm really tugging on that loop to tighten up that last stitch. We don't want our work to slide off the headband. Before moving on, we'll take just a moment to weave in our tail. I'm doing this on the underside of the headband. I've never had any issues with the tail ends coming out because they're held in so securely by the single crochet wrap. Okay, so we've basically finished the first part of this project. We've covered our entire headband with our yarn of choice. We have all 19 of our stitch markers. This is going to guide us as we work the back of the headband. And now we're ready to head on to part 2. We will join our yarn to our hook with a slip knot, and then we'll be joining our yarn to the headband at marker number 6. It does not matter which side you're coming from. This is a completely symmetrical project. So you can see I'm removing stitch marker number 6, and then I insert my hook. It might be a little tight, but you should be able to wiggle it into that stitch, and then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop, and then we'll yarn over again and pull through both of the loops on our hook. Now chain 5, and then we're going to work 2 double crochets in marker number 7. So yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, and then to complete your double crochet, you'll yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. The chain 5 wants to spin a little bit, so just be a little bit careful with this first double crochet. Continue this pattern from stitch marker to stitch marker until you reach marker number 14. After you work 2 double crochets into stitch marker 14, you will have 8 loops on your headband. Then we're going to chain 3, and I accidentally chained 4 here. So do as I say, not as I did in this video. And then we're going to join to the next stitch marker, number 15. With a single crochet. At this point you have 9 loops on your headband. Rows 2 through 9 will all be worked in the same way. You're going to chain 4 and then turn. You're always going to skip the first loop, and then you'll work 2 double crochets In the next loop, chain 5, 2 double crochets in the next loop all the way across. Now that you're working into the loops and not the headband, these rows will go very quickly. I wanted to film all of this row so you can see what we do when we reach the end of the row. You can see I've just chained 5. I'm going to work 2 double crochets into this last loop. And then at the end of each row, you only chain 3. And then you join to the next stitch marker with a single crochet. The reason we're only chaining 3 here is because we don't work into this loop, so we don't want it to be a large loop and stick out. Then chain 4, turn, you will always be skipping the first loop, the chain 3 from the previous row, and then after that initial chain 4 you'll always be doing a chain 5 and then 2 double crochets. I also make these headbands with chain 4s instead of chain 5s. If in every place we chain 5 in this project, you chain 4 instead, that creates a headband where the loops are just a little bit smaller. That is another option or variation for you to explore on this pattern. Here we are at the end of row 3. You can see our headband is already starting to take shape. I also wanted to show you that when these stitches are kind of tight, if you push your hook up into them where you reach until you reach the wider, flatter part of the hook, it just opens up the stitch a little bit and makes it easier to work into. So you just keep working back and forth. At the end of each row, you'll be removing one stitch marker. And by the time you reach the end of row 9, there will only be one stitch marker left on your headband. So here we are at the end of row 9. I've got that one stitch marker left. Here's how our headband looks. It's all done except for a finishing row. We have one more row. And now we're going to finish off our project with a gentle scallop. So for row 10, you're going to chain 3 and turn. Work 2 double crochets into the first loop. And then we're going to work a single crochet between the next 2 double crochets. We're going to go right in between the stitches. Work a single crochet and then chain 1. Now in the next loop, we're going to work 3 double crochets. And this will be our pattern. Single crochet between the next 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then 3 double crochets in the next loop. I'm working my 3 double crochets into the last loop, and then our very last step is just to join to that first stitch marker with a slip stitch. To work a slip stitch, just insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. Go ahead and cut your yarn and pull it through the loop. And now there's nothing left to do but weave in our loose ends. We'll weave these underneath the headband just like we've done previously. Once you're done, you may want to spend a little time shaping your headband. I also think they really benefit from a steam. So if you happen to have a fabric steamer, just a minute or 2 with some steam helps those fibers to relax. And there we have it, Megan's headband. I'll put the story of why it's called Megan's headband in the description below. I love this gentle scalloped edge. I can't even tell you how many Megan's headbands I have made over the years. There is something sweet and maybe even a little old-fashioned about them. I feel like we're seeing some of this come back into modern fashion. We're seeing bows and bonnets and scarves. They can also be very practical. I love making them out of 100% cotton. If you're spending a day at the beach, wearing a Megan's headband will keep the wind from whipping your hair into your eyes. They look super cute after a swim in the pool. From the front, it looks like a regular headband. And on the back, you have this sweet and perhaps unexpected lace. I would enjoy seeing your headbands. Please feel free to tag me at Jen of Winrose on Instagram. I hope you enjoyed this project, and if you did, please hit like and subscribe. I'll be sharing new videos on Tuesdays, and I can't wait to share more patterns with you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.